Having a background in visual effects helps in all sorts of different ways. I was at ILM for 4 years before starting my own company. Being very comfortable working with that made it much easier, I think, in many respects, to try to get as much as we did on the screen.
The best thing about working with Scott, as you say, is that he has a background in visual effects, or general understanding of visual effects, and also what to look for in a shot.
My name is Gray Marshall, and I was the on-set visual effects supervisor for Legion. Even before the film is greenlit, the effects work is being planned and budgeted and at least laid out in its rough form. Then during pre-production, we create the list of effects we're going to have in the movie, refine it, how we're going to do it, who's going to do it, and all these various aspects. And that's part of my job as well.
When Gladys is running through the diner, that's practical, and wires are pulling tables and chairs out of the way. Then when she jumps up on the glass and walks up, that's going to be a CG version of her. Because we couldn't get a stunt person to do anything like that believably, obviously.
But when I came onto the film, Gladys was photographed, and what was missing was the non-stunt work.
Gladys was a lot of fun, and a lot rested upon Gladys, because Gladys is really the first time that the possessed world enters into our fairly normal environment. So there's stunt work, there's makeup work, there's rig removal of getting rid of the wire holding the stunt actress.
We used the background plates of that, and then we made a full CG Gladys from the photography of her, and then animate her doing those things, and it took quite a few weeks to get the motion right. But what we had to do was treat her like not a human lady of 90 pounds, but more of an insect. Even though her clothing has to behave in our world, her own body behaves by totally different laws.
They try to get Howard to the hospital, and the first thing that they run into a fly swarm. They run into these dark clouds that have been closing in on the diner from the north and the south. Turn out to not be clouds at all, but a swarm of flies. And that's where you start to go, okay, this is biblical. There's something really big happening here, and it's very supernatural.
The swarm of flies was conceived as a matte painting because we mostly see the swarm of flies from a distance. You know, it's possible to conceive of it as one piece of artwork. A lot of visual effects ends up being about suggesting something that isn't really there. So just in light and shadow and color, if you look very close at these paintings, you're not going to see more detail, you'll see less. So we had a very good, extremely talented matte painter. She made maybe 20 or 30 versions of this fly cloud, and Scott had very specific ideas. You know, how do you make something that doesn't just look like a mass of gray? You know, something that's dynamic. It looks like an explosion that's kind of frozen in the air. It looks like it's, you know, it's one of, you know, like God's wrath really is what you have to say, but it's broad daylight, it's 12 o'clock noon, which is sort of the least threatening time. It's a lot of ideas that have to turn into a visual image. It looks believable and it looks threatening.
Even when the swarm gets in the car, that was all done with computer graphics, but the actors were told to react, and we did our various shots. You can't really fake or build later those reactions and so forth.
At that point it does become 3D, and they did model, you know, 4 or 5 different kinds of flies, and they fill it with 1,000 points of flies, really. And they're constrained in a 3D car model, and there are holdouts with 3D people so that the flies can fly around them. It's creating in the digital realm the same circumstances as the photography, except that it's an impossible event. There shouldn't be anything visually to tell you that it's not photographed.
The Ice Cream Man. He gets enhanced digitally, of course. We stretch his jaw down, and we stretch his hands, and we do all sorts of stuff. And then there's part of him where he's wearing prosthetic arms and legs, but he's this character that you know, steps out of this ice cream truck.
Ice Cream Man was one of those that was mostly planned on being practical and in camera, and then using visual effects to clean up.
The post-production job was getting rid of the green suit and a lot of Doug Jones, frankly.
Doug Jones got extensions on his arms to make them longer, and his legs are actually sticking out the back of the ice cream man, the legs you see in the costume. He's puppeting them with his own legs, in that his own legs are covered in green screen material and easy to remove. And then the computer animation came in to enhance his face, give it more character and life.
And then we also had to distort his face and body beyond what was photographed.
You could see just scenes where he's putting his arm out and stretching him out, and it looks like the arms are growing, but then the computer work came in and slimmed it out and made it look even narrower. In that particular case, the computers became more of an icing on the cake, but the core of it is still Doug, very much in there, very much doing that role as Ice Cream Man.
The Boyle sequence, all of the shots were photographed, but in each one we had to go in and animate the Boyles, just give them life, give them depth, make them look like they were liquid filled. As gross as it is to talk about, it was much grosser to stare at it every day for a couple of months.
From the chest down, he was a suit, and if you could see it from the side, his body was hung up, but his body was done in an angle and piercing through, and you can see his head and arms. The Boyles are laid on there. Some of them are built into the suit, which needed a lot of room for the pneumatics. It's supposed to be a ferocious acidic blast that was always planned to be enhanced. We knew we weren't going to get all we wanted out of it, especially with redressing the actors and so forth between takes.
Come back!
It's a nighttime shot, there's a full moon, and all of our actors or our characters are gathered inside the diner, and all of these, thousands, 10,000, 100,000 possessed people are closing in on the diner. So it's just a scope shot. Scott wanted something that says, yes, this is a big movie and this is how many people it's really affecting. The vast majority of the shot is a matte painting. And then immediately following that are some aerial shots. And again, that may be, 5,000 or 10,000 people. It's a sequence called Dark World, and it's sort of where the angels dwell, and I guess you could call it heaven, but it's a pretty dark version of heaven. So it's a full CG shot. Once the camera pushes past Paul Bettany, then the entire environment, the sky environment, the architecture, and every one of 10,000 angel figures are 3D. They swarm in a very kind of awe-inspiring and elegant way. They drop down toward camera and then pass immediately in front of camera. When the angels are flying by, we treated it as if your car is pulled over on the side of the freeway and a semi goes by, and just the force of air causes the car to shake. So we did that with the camera.
Only if I fail. War is coming to man, Michael, whether you wish it or not. The dogs of heaven will be unleashed.
There's a scene where Jeep jumps on Gabriel and sends him over the edge of a cliff, and they spiral down maybe a mile.
We really beat the living hell out of Kevin on that scene in the movie. Gosh, we had Lucas jump on his back and thrust him over the edge of a cliff into a bag, into a big green bag several times, and then we attached him to wires in a shot where they've fallen over the edge of the cliff and they're spiraling down to the next ridge below. We go with them. We're traveling down the rock face really fast, and Kevin's spiraling, and so is Lucas Black's character. And we had a stunt double for Lucas on him, but we had Kevin really do it, and we spun him. So basically the way that's done is they're hanging on wires above a big green screen, and the camera's pointing straight down at them, and we spin them. And that couldn't have been really that much fun. I just have to have thought they would have all just wanted to barf afterwards, but we kept spinning them for 10, 15 minutes. It was really pretty brutal.
And Kevin, I think, almost threw up because, after take 6 of spinning really fast in one place, the entire environment is a 3D matte painting. So the cliff face that passes right by camera, and the distance all the way to the ground is all created. And the wings, of course, are added. So the only thing that was photographed are just the two actors, and everything else in the frame is created.
Of course, we've got digital wings on the characters and these big virtual environments, which are a lot of fun, and Spin did all that work, and Joe Bauer supervised that. It's all really well done.
Action!
I'm mostly proud of the fact that, to me, it doesn't feel like a visual effects driven movie. It does have a lot of them in there, but maybe not in such a sort of obvious way. I think it's still, I don't think they ever overpower the characters and the character's story.
Cut. Very nice.
Cut.